Let's talk about the power of note-taking in Notion. Using Notion to organize notes, quotes, and web clippings is a great way to gather all your personal knowledge in one place and then connect those ideas and references to your projects and outputs that actually make use of them. Hello, welcome back friends, it's Simon, and as you may know, I recently released my Simplified Notion Life OS, my latest Notion Second Brain template. So in this video, we'll do a tour of how to manage notes, clippings, and even a bit of journaling in that template. Now this is either a guide to using it or simply a bit of inspiration for you to create your own approach from scratch in Notion. And so if you haven't watched my previous video of this Second Brain template, do consider going and watching that first and then coming back here for the wider context of the system. And of course you can download the entire thing right now at bettercreating.com, and I've turned this notes and clipping system in fact into a standalone template if you just want that little bit of it. Check out those essential Notion templates for that. This is probably my simplest approach to managing notes and clippings yet. At the heart of it is really a single database to capture both notes, that might be things I write or record, and clippings which I might find from, say, video links or Kindle highlights or web clippings that you find and articles. And the idea is that you then relate them to your projects or anything else. Now, using Notion to gather ideas and knowledge that resonates with you is a great way to not only remember what you read, watch, and listen to that has value more easily, but also to make sure that you do connect it to meaningful outputs or projects that actually make use of it later down the line. So they're not just forgotten. The essence of this idea is to have one database that is for input, my notes and clippings database, and then another which is for output, which sorts a view of them, and that for me is project pages, where you can relate various notes and clippings to the page and view them in filtered views by that project. So first of all, let's start with a quick overview of the notes and clippings dashboard. This is an empty version of it we can take a look at. So you'll see within here, we have filtered views. So this is all one database. So if I just show the database title, it is this main database that sits within the system database section of the template here, where you'll find all of the different databases dropped in there. Okay, so if we just go back, you can find out the filters of these three views by clicking on filter, and you'll see here under rules, this is where the status is anything at all other than archived and is a note. And then in this one, we've got stuff that is filtered by where a note is listed as priority or status is favorited. And then down here we have clippings, and these are filtered by whether it is not archived and is a clipping. That is the view. Now we have a number of different elements in here, and it's pretty simple. We have a status view, which allows you, if we create a new priority note, so let's call this a meeting notes for Notion planning, for example. And we have subject tags, so I can list any subject in it. So it might be, let's call it that. That could be anything at all, but as you get into clippings, it might be subject matters like self-development or fishing, cycling, whatever you need it to be. We have a URL, which is really useful for the clipping section when we take clippings, and we have this key element here, related projects, which allows you to link anything you find to a specific project. So I can link that to my YouTube channel, and I know that it will show up within that view. So those are the basics of the main dashboard. If I now click back here and go to my inboxes, you'll also see a view of this database under notes and web clippings. They're both filtered views of that system, and you would, for example, if we created just a new written note here, and it shows up in the page here. When we do this, you'll see that there is also a type column, and that is really simply a select column that just selects whether something is a note or a clipping. So when you create something in the inbox, you can choose which you want it to be. Now, the way something is filtered from this system is when the status is changed from anything but new. So for example, I might want to relate this to my YouTube channel. I might want to add my subject tag, for example, like this, and then all I would do to filter it from the inbox is make it live, and it goes. And you'll see that what's happened, if we now go using this back to notes and clippings, we'll see that that is dropped in under my notes. So under the properties here, if you want to see any hidden properties, you can see the rest of them down here, last edited, created, but there's the type. Now the other thing that might be of interest to you, under notes, we have a project notebook table. Now this is a way of filtering notes into projects, and all I've done is group it by the related project. So this is a really nice way to use projects as notebooks. And there's also a gallery view there as well if you want to see things in there. Now, a couple of other details about status. This priority obviously puts things into priority views, and if we go back to the home page, you'll see there's also a view here which just shows priority notes. So this little toggle view on the main homepage is a nice way to just keep favorited and priority notes there. A good way just to quickly view the stuff you need on the homepage. In the main dashboard, you've got a little bit more that you can look at. So if I now move this to live, it just means that it's not up there and sits in this area and is in current notes. You can see notes and current notes. But if I want to just keep something and it not be in the current notes view, I can also make it keep. So I've kind of finished with it. It won't show up in here, but I can see it in the kind of basic notes view. And finally, if I wanted to archive this, I could click archive. It disappears it from all the views here. And if we jump through to the actual database, there is an archived notes and clippings area where you're able to just see the archived notes and clippings. So that's the kind of idea of status. It filters it from views. You can adjust the filters as you wish. And in this system, for me, journaling is laid out as a different database to note taking. Now, for me, the reason is that I want my journal to be a place where I just do one thing, reflect in various ways for myself on a regular basis, and I can do things like build a chain of entries within the system. So to journal, I have a button, you click journal, and it will create a new entry in the system, and you can simply pick one of these templates. Now, if I take a look at these templates, you can edit any journal templates or add your own by creating a new template here or duplicating one of mine. Let's look at my end of week review as a template. If I go in and click on the dots and I can click edit, you can set up prompts within it as you wish. So this here is my end of the week review template. It allows me to fill it in. So when I want to do that on this one, I'll just make it the end of the week review. It creates it, sets it up, and away I go. Now, I'm not going to go into much more detail on this journaling system because there is plenty of time for that in a future video. And I think it's pretty self-explanatory, so jump in, give it a go on the template. Let's now jump across to Quick Drop and how you might input quickly any ideas or clippings into the system. So of course we have our main notes and clippings dashboard, and you can always just add a new note using this button and it will drop it in. But I absolutely recommend in my system, and maybe you try this in your own if you don't use my template, is to make a Quick Drop page. And this is a page you can jump to really quickly and just drop things like tasks in, or indeed new notes into this area. And what it means is you can then drag those things very quickly into the system and you're able to view them. We've got two views in this. I've got new notes and new clippings. They're just filtered by the type. But why would you put new notes down here? In general, it's because you can do it on your phone. So this is how I do it. I have a widget on my phone. I can click it. It will jump straight to the page and I can see everything in there. But on a mobile, it's quite hard to kind of view stuff. But you could just jump in and start with a new note. That's what I would suggest, like this. And I might say something like ideas on Stoicism. And one of my favorite things about using this is you can use dictation. I've had some really great ideas on Stoicism and great approaches to journaling using Notion. That's a really great little trick and I thoroughly recommend using it. So that's a quick way to drop it in. Obviously it's not as easy to see it here, but that's why we have this view. Look, so you can come back here and there's the idea, open it up and we've got the note. So that's a great way to add notes. And of course you can just add new notes using the button here. So if you wanted to set this up on your iOS device, you could also, I'm sure, use like bookmarks to the Notion page on an Android. But for this, I'm going to hold my finger on the button, click up here on the plus button, find Notion, click on Notion and add the widget. I'm going to move it down into position. I would tap it to set it up and you choose the page and you can just click on here, find my inbox's Quick Drop And it's as simple as that. And then when you click through, you will just come to the page. So this is a great way to take notes on your phone, and I really love that annotation system. But what about clippings? Well, that's where this Notion system really comes into its own. For web clippings, we've got lots of options. The first one, if I go to some pages I've got set up here, is to use something like the Notion Web Clipper. This is really simple. It's a Chrome extension which you can easily find and drop into your system. You can set where you want it to go to in your workspace, save page, open it in Notion, and you'll see there it is. And there you go, it's dropped in, and then all I need to do is just drag it into the web clippings view. Now with the Notion Web Clipper, you probably want to open it up. You'll see all the information in there because it's imported it all, which is rather good. But you might just want to take that and drop it into your URL. The next option would be to use iOS, and this is my favorite example. Let me give you a couple of examples of that. If we jump into my browser on iOS, I can just use the share button here, and I can click Notion, pick the page I want to add it to, quick drop, there it is, make sure it's set up on that, click save, and we see it drop in at the bottom of the page. But even better, this also works for things like YouTube. So if we jump into a video, we can click share, go to more, go to Notion, and save the YouTube video. But it gets even better than that, and my favorite system has got to be something called Save to Notion. So if we jump to my page again here, let's see this, we've got this Forte Labs Building a Second Brain guide, and I want to add it. You can also grab a Chrome extension called Save to Notion. Here we go. You can create a form. So for example, add new form. Now in this one, I wouldn't select the inbox quick drop because I want it to go straight to the database. So what I can do is actually find notes and clippings database and select the database. Now when you create it, let me just show you one that I've already made, you then get a form that you can create, and we can add new fields from the database system. So we could add, for example, related projects in there, and I've already got a load of the other things. And the other great thing about this is you can also select the template to be new clipping. Now that means that now when I clip this into the system, if we close this, we can see the content image. I can add the content, although maybe on this one I won't do that. I can add subject tags, productivity tools, keep the status, etc., etc. Click save page, and then if you've set it to open in the desktop app, you can even click this and it will open the page in Notion and show you all the information that you wanted to add. Of course, there I haven't asked it to add everything. And there it is, building a second brain, and it's dropped it in. Really powerful stuff and a great way to add things. It also means that I can either relate something to a project in this or actually on the clipping menu. So let's do one more. These are some of my favorite retro motorbikes. I'm gonna click this in, notes and clippings database. I'm gonna add the web page content. I'm gonna relate this to Moto Life. And in fact, this is a way to skip your inbox because you can actually set the status to live. I wanna save the page. I'm gonna jump back to this, jump to my notes and clippings area, and there are my best retro motorcycles all clipped into the system, made live, all ready to go. It's super, super cool. I thoroughly recommend checking out Save to Notion. And of course, you can kind of use iOS to jump into anything. So for example, I found this Cody Sanchez Twitter thread. I want to maybe share this. I can just share via, go into Notion, my inbox, tweet, save it. There's our tweet. If I drop this into my clippings, open it up, we've got a link to it and we can see all of the stuff in that tweet. Pretty cool. And therefore, you might also, since we're doing things like videos and tweets and so on, you might want to add one more property as a select and call this category. And that would allow you to group those as things like tweet. Now, a final option for quick capture, which I think is going to change the game, is from one of my colleagues in the Notion world, one of the most loved Notion people, and it's Thomas Frank. Now, I just want to jump a across to this. He has just created, you can literally only get an invite at the time of making this video, a new app, and it's called Flylighter, and I think it's going to be really super brilliant. He's got a 6-minute video demoing how it works, but what's amazing about this is you're able to customize absolutely everything, organize your workflows by last use, capture count, do it alphabetically. He's got various different flows and relational database elements that you can do in this. It's basically going to be a system that we all wish we had had a long time ago. And so for a system like my Simplified Life OS, combining it with an app like this for capturing things like tasks, notes, clippings, everything, Flylighter could be your answer. So join the mailing list. I don't know, say I sent you, and we'll all give it a go. Now the final part of this is to filter these into your system, and the simple thing is you might want to relate them to projects. For example, that's going to be research for my podcast. Building a second brain is going to link to personal growth, so on and so forth. Once you're happy with all of your information, you just move these to either live or priority, and you will drop all of them into your system. I can take my 50 Stoic journaling prompts, drop them in, clipping, related project, YouTube channel, subject, add a subject, move it to priority for me for that one. You get the idea. And then when we go back to our notes and clippings dashboard, we'll see everything under clippings is dropped into the system in a way that we can view it that is very, very clear. So that is the power of finding ideas from books, quotes, and so on, and adding them into this system. Now there are further places you can go, like using your Kindle and highlighting systems to feed into this, but maybe that's for another video. Next, let's talk about organizing and sorting the ideas that you collect, the clippings, the thoughts, the notes, so that they actually come back to you in a meaningful way. That is the single greatest power of using a second brain. Now, of course, we usually want to organize our information and find connections between them, and this is how to do it. Now, the main way of doing that in my system is using project relations to group notes and clippings together. Now, a project is a separate database. We use a relation, we can create new projects. So if I've linked this to the YouTube channel, if I then click through to that YouTube channel, within that page, we have a filtered view of any notes that have been linked to that project. There it is, related project. And if you see in my filter where the related project is that. So anytime you create a new project in the projects database, over here, this project template is set to show a filtered view of anything related to itself. So it just works. Every new project you get, it will do that. So if I go into podcast, I can see down the bottom, nothing is linked. If we go back to my notes and clippings, and let's say I want to relate this to my podcast, then when I go to the podcast and look down the bottom, I'll see that it's linked in the view. So it's a really simple way to create notebooks. Now, what I've also done on the notes and clippings dashboard is I've created something called project notebooks. And this is just simply a view of the project relation with anything that's linked to it. I've currently only got it for notes, but if you wanted this to be also for clippings as well, you could just click on the filter, edit the filter, and make the type be both of them like that, and you would see more stuff, but I'm not going to worry about that. There's also a project notebooks gallery. So this is a great way of making connections, and when you're working on that project, you'll see what you need. But some of you might want to create a simpler way of building notebooks. I've not included it in the template. I also want you to take templates like this and build them out yourself. In my bigger LifeOS systems, I've done things like parent items and sub-items. I've used relations to other notebook things. But my favorite simple route to doing this has got to be using a tag. It sounds simple, but look how powerful it can be. So the first thing we're going to do, let's go to our notes database here. I'm going to create a new property. I'm going to call it notebook tag. You could call it what you like. Let's create that. And let's make the type, it could either be a select or a multi-select, but I would make it multi-select because then notes can be in multiple notebooks, something you can't do on paper. Click that, and let's make this look nice, give it a notebook symbol. And then into here, you could do things like have subjects like that. This is going to be my meeting notes notebook, but you could also have things like Stoicism research, or it could be personal growth book planning. Who knows, right? Just clear those out of that one. there you go. Meeting notes for Notion planning. I'm going to add that to meeting notes. Ideas on Stoicism. I'm going to add to the Stoicism research. And of course, if you want it in your clippings, you could also go to properties and show the notebook tag, and you can link these to Stoicism research. And let's link that one to personal growth book planning. So the simplest way to then view this is to add a filter. So you can add a filter, go to notebook tag, and just save for everyone. And then you have a tag filter there where you can just click on it and go, I just want to look at meeting notes, and it'll show them to you. And then you can, when you're done, clear it. But an even better way could be to actually create a notebook view. So let's take our notes view here. I'm going to duplicate it. We're going to call this notebooks. I'm going to click on here and clean it up. And then this view, I'm going to group by notebook tag. And you'll see what it does is it drops all of the items under that tag. So you've got a really quick view by notebook as you need. And of course you could drop that down here. We could change the filter since I've copied it. The filters are currently just for notes, but if we make the type notes and clippings, then everything, clippings and notes will all go under that notebook. So there you go. Notebooks created, a really beautiful and simple way of sorting your items using tags. So that is the power of using Notion as a knowledge hub. Let me know what you make of all this in the comments, what you'd like to see me build next, and watch this video next for more on how a second brain can transform how you set and achieve goals this year, or this one for how I'm using Notion to run this entire channel and a business. I'd love it if you shared this video with a friend, by the way. Definitely get subscribed to the channel if you aren't, and I'd better get back to creating.